Another team is trying to acquire our young and up-and-coming stars, as now the Golden State Warriors are reported and rumored to be interested in both Gary Trent Jr. and OG Anunoby, and a bunch of wild news that came out today. So we'll break down all of that in this video. Additionally, the Raptors feel like they're snake bitten this season, as we have more injuries to report on in this video, as it doesn't look like we're going to have most of our roster heading into our game against the Atlanta Hawks. Also, a couple quotes to break down, so lots of stuff to dive into. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here with the Raptors Digest, breaking down the latest Toronto Raptors news, and definitely hit subscribe if you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel. It helps us out big time. But let's dive into the news, and the first thing we're taking a look at is the Golden State Warriors. Interested, not just Trent for Wiseman, but a whole bunch of Toronto Raptors young stars. A bunch of news has come out, some of it rumors, some of it may just be smoke, but a lot of stuff we gotta parse our way through in this video, as it seems like the Golden State Warriors feel like they can have their handpicked favorite players from the Toronto Raptors, given the reports have come out. Now, we'll dive into the first one. The first one indicates it's coming from heavy.com, Jack Simone. This is the news reporting site that touched on a lot of the Kevin Durant stuff over the summer, but they reported the Warriors could be interested in trading for Gary Trent Jr. to bolster their underperforming bench. He goes on to say that James Wiseman, who was recently sent down to the G League, could be the centerpiece of a deal that would give Toronto a true center amidst their crowded front court of slim floor stretching bigs. And they go on to talk about how obviously Gary Trent Jr. would be an amazing fit for the Golden State Warriors, being a 3-and-D guy that could come off the bench for their roster. Now, this is the first thing that's been really circling around Raptors fans in terms of Warriors reports and rumors, and man, I don't know how I'm feeling about a return of just James Wiseman. Now, there have to be other pieces just given how the contract situations work, but James Wiseman is not getting it done for Gary Trent Jr. I know he's still young. I know he has potential in terms of athleticism, but even injuries aside, James Wiseman just has not been that good for the Golden State Warriors. Yes, he shows flashes of being a very strong big man. He has the length, and yes, with exception, we just drafted Christian Koloko, who has shown a lot of potential himself during his rookie season. James Wiseman, he's not that dude. He's not that dude that we can rely upon as a team that wants to win now, right? The Raptors are looking to make a push in the Eastern Conference. Wiseman's not going to be that reliable guy to, start at the 5 for us and be very effective at just running being anchoring our defense and being able to run stuff through him on the offensive end. So that just straight up for Gary Trent Jr. really doesn't make sense. I've heard other things go on to say that potentially Kuminga could be added to a deal if Gary Trent Jr. be sent to the Golden State Warriors, as well as potentially Dante DiVincenzo. Now, if we're getting Kuminga, DiVincenzo, as well as a James Wiseman, I think the potential of those, especially Wiseman and Kuminga, would force the Raptors' hand in potentially making one of those deals, and then you're also getting a solid vet back in DiVincenzo. But just Wiseman itself is not it's not really what I'm seeing. That's sort of all speculative, all of this at this point. But Kuminga's a dude that I think would thrive with the Raptors development system, so I wouldn't mind acquiring him, bringing him in. But there's been a lot of chatter about Gary Trent Jr. and his potential trade ability during the trade deadline, because we have to pay a lot of players in the upcoming seasons. I mean, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, both free agents within the next couple of years. We have to look ahead to Scottie Barnes' future extension, which we know will likely be or at least in the range of a max contract. I mean, Tyler Herro and RJ Barrett were getting those level of deals, so Scottie Barnes is surely on that trajectory, right? We have role players like Precious Achiuwa, Boucher that's on the books right now, OG Anunoby that's still making tons of money, and some people are saying that Gary Trent Jr. might not be the right fit, and he's also been struggling this season. His stats are down, especially in regards to efficiency and those sorts of stats. I mean, he's still averaging 17 points per game, but still not delivering that much in terms of facilitating and playmaking. Couple of rebounds per night. His steals are a little bit down, but still 1.4 is pretty solid. But the ugly stats, at least early on in this season, is the 3-point percentage. Being in the low 30s, field goal percentage being in roughly 41%. So those aren't very good for a guy that's supposed to come in, be your volume scorer. But he was really, really hot to start off this season. Gary Trent Jr. was great. And while he slumped, and I think a lot of these stats with smaller sample size are skewed by the fact that Gary Trent Jr. is playing through an injury, that hip injury he's playing with over the past week and stuff. Trent is a guy that we sort of need. We need those shot creators to surround our current sort of construction of roster. Yes, OG Anunoby has certainly improved, but he's the most effective when he's utilized within the flow of the offense rather than trying to create something out of nothing. Fred VanVleet can certainly knock down some of those shots, but again, his size limits him, same way Kyle Lowry did at times, like to really get an easy look. Sure, he can hit those step backs at times. Sure, he can hit some of those deep threes, but he's not necessarily a guy that I'd count on to get you a contested shot, get you a look when all the offense completely goes to madness consistently on a night in, night out basis. And Pascal Siakam, while he started being able to do that, has gone down with injury. It's not naturally his game over the course of the seasons. Again, he's certainly stepped into that number one option role, but Gary Trent Jr. is just one of those polished, elite, tough shot makers. And we need those types of guys. We need those types of dudes. I think the stats are a little bit down right now. They certainly bounce back. I don't think we should be giving away Gary Trent Jr. for nothing. So if it's just James Wiseman, I'm hesitant to do that deal. I know the potential's there, but with the injuries and the lack of performance and output so far in his career, I'd want some added additions. Now, if Kuminga's in there, I might be a little bit more intrigued, but one deal that has also come out in terms of these rumors that I'm definitely not intrigued by is this one. And I don't know how real this is, so I'm just going to briefly touch on it. It got a lot of votes on Reddit, but apparently, according to Legion Hoops, the Toronto Raptors are willing to trade OG Anunoby for Draymond Green. I'm just here to say that's not true. I don't care who reported it. I don't care if it's a legitimate report or if it's fake news. That's not true. We're not going to trade OG Anunoby for Draymond Green. Put that to rest. End the speculation on that there. OG Anunoby at this point in his career, maybe with the exception of facilitating, is literally better than Draymond Green at everything else. So let's not feed into that rumor hype because it's not going to happen. We're not going to trade for Draymond Green. But so I'm going to end off the Warriors' randomness and madness on that front. But we do have some unfortunate news to report on in this video, and the Raptors have another injury update. It feels like every news video we've been putting out, we've had to touch on how more guys have been added to the injury report for this Raptors squad. And as I said in the intro, it feels like the Toronto Raptors are snake bitten at this point. As we go up against the Atlanta Hawks, which are a team we're very close with in the standings, we're not going to have a huge contingent of our guys. As obviously Precious Achiuwa is still out with his right ankle sprain, might need surgery. Boucher is now out with a non-COVID illness. Dalano Banton's out with a left ankle sprain. Ron Harper Jr. is down there in the G League. Otto Porter Jr. is still out with a left foot and toe dislocation. Siakam still has his abductor strain. And Gary Trent Jr. now not being listed for his hip injury, but more so for a non-COVID illness. We have 7 guys. 7 guys that are not going to be in this lineup right now. And Fred VanVleet is still dealing with that back tightness. Scotty Barnes came out and essentially said, but he was asked if there's bothered at all by that ankle, and he came out and said no, but clearly from the eye test, clearly from the ankle rolls he's getting every second game, there's something going on with that ankle injury. So the Raptors are currently hobbled, and it's just extremely unfortunate. Now, we were able to get that win against the Detroit Pistons. Dalano Banton had an amazing game, and then he ended up going down with injury in our most recent one against the Heat. But the Raptors, even though the Heat were banged up as well with Bam and Tyler Hero out, Raptors were really able to put it together, have a nice, strong third quarter, and get the W against the Miami Heat in their most recent outing. So the last time we played the Atlanta Hawks, we absolutely crushed them. Trae Young ended up having over 10 turnovers in that game. So the Hawks are going to try and come out and be more fired up, not get bullied the same way they did in the previous outing against the Toronto Raptors. And the fact that we're undermanned, it might be tough, but I think the Raptors just match up really well. Injuries or not, against the Atlanta Hawks, we can defend them to quality. As long as OG Anunoby's playing there to, throw that size onto Trae Young, I'm confident in our squad. And things seem to be a bit tumultuous there, even though they're winning. But John Collins, he's been in a bunch of trade reports over the past day or so. Shams reported on a bunch of that. We're going to dive into that in a whole video on Courtside Digest. So hopefully the Raptors can come out and get a win against the Atlanta Hawks because, as said, we are very close to them in the standings, and we want to push for that top 3 seed. And things have been very jumbled up. Everyone's sort of neck and neck now in the Eastern Conference. And over the next month or so, we're going to see teams start to separate ourselves. And we don't want the Atlanta Hawks, currently who are ahead of us in the standings, to create that much separation. So hopefully everyone can return quickly. At least it doesn't seem like Gary Trent Jr.'s hip's bothering him too much anymore, right? We need that star boy back into our lineup. It's a non-COVID illness. It's going around. So I'm feeling a little bit gross today as well. So I think half of Canada is out here feeling a little bit sick. So hopefully all of our guys can recover recovers soon. But we got more stuff to dive into, and the next thing we're taking a look at is OG Anunoby and Fred VanVleet speak out on Kyle Lowry and the Miami Heat. Now, we had some funny quotes coming from a couple of our stars in the post-game press conference against the Miami Heat. Obviously, Kyle Lowry made his return to the, not ACC, the Scotiabank Arena, and, always showing love. Kyle Lowry did post a picture of Scotty Barnes on his Instagram, the past versus the future, right there matched up, so that was cool. But we also had some, his former teammates talk about what's like playing against Kyle. OG Anunoby discussed that play where Kyle Lowry was guarding him in the post. Just said, I thought he was going to flop. And he didn't. Kyle Lowry stood his ground. I used to bring this up on a bunch of podcasts. Also said, he also discussed the Bo Cruz movie there, for Hustle. Says he doesn't have his Netflix password. Thought it'd be a flop. Or whatever. I won't, any excuse I get to play the Cruz missile animation, I'm going to play it. But I discussed this on a bunch of videos throughout this channel, throughout its history. Maybe newer viewers might not be familiar because Kyle Lowry's no longer this team, but I have never seen a player, no matter how big they are, no matter how strong, no matter how effective they are at scoring in the post, score on Kyle Lowry down low. That man's is one of the best post defenders in the NBA. Similar to Marcus Smart there with the Boston Celtics. Smaller guys with that weight, that frame, they just don't score on Kyle Lowry, and OG Anunoby should have known better playing with this guy for so long. Fred VanVleet also had a pretty interesting quote saying that loves Kyle. He's a big fan of Kyle. He tries to watch as many Heat games as he can stomach. So to support his guy, to keep an eye, see how Kyle Lowry's doing. But he says he's definitely not a fan of the Miami Heat, so he watches as many games as he can stomach to support his former vet, his former point guard that guided him in his entry to the NBA. So that was a funny little quote. Obviously, I like the little rivalry the Miami Heat and Toronto Raptors have had in recent seasons, going back to the 2016 playoffs, the Goran Dragic drama all last year. So it's always a bit of fun, poking some fun at the Miami Heat. The final thing we're discussing is Nick Nurse speaks out on Chris Boucher and Christian Koloko's the next steps for them to improve this Toronto Raptors defense. And while both those two players, as said, are very strong in terms of length, mobility, getting over and blocking shots, says our defense can really be taken to the next level if they just enter their help side rotations a little bit earlier. And from the eye test, especially Christian Koloko as a rookie big man, I thought he's pretty good with his defense awareness, but I see what he's saying in terms of just getting onto that help side, being on that ball, when your man's on that weak side, ball's on strong side. You got to get to the center of that court in order to be an effective guarding position, especially as a shot blocker. And Nick Nurse essentially said, you'll be able to block a lot more shots if you guys are getting over there early on defense. Those skip passes, especially for centers, aren't as worrisome, unless you're going up against LeBron James and Kevin Love's in that corner. But flashbacks to those 2017, 2018 playoff series. But nice little interesting tweak that we could see the Raptors defense that could boost the blocking stats for Chris Boucher and Christian Koloko. So get those guys on your fantasy teams while you can. But you guys are the best to make this far. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. We're on that push for 27,000 subs. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.